Water is life, but sometimes the quiet, calm element can turn into an unstoppable torrent, sweeping away everything in its path. Some of the best cases of water gone wild lie ahead in this video. Watch until the end, you definitely don't want to miss any of these moments. We begin our video with what is perhaps one of the most tragic events to ever befall our planet. This is footage from the aftermath of the Great East Japanese Earthquake, an 8.9 magnitude quake that had rocked the island nation. The tsunami caused by the aftershocks had ended up sweeping away everything in its path, devastating nearly 250 miles of coastline. There was even 32-foot waves witnessed 2 miles inland. Our next story features the Category 4 hurricane, which had brought destruction to New York in 2021. Ida. When the raging elements had reached New York City, a record amount of precipitation had fallen on the city, and water from the flooded streets soon began pouring into the subway. Traffic in the metropolis, the population which exceeds 8.5 million, was frozen for quite some time. Sometimes, people think that we can truly control the elements, but that's not always possible to do. Kind of like in the Turkish resort city of Bodrum, where the drivers and passengers of these two vehicles had miraculously escaped disaster. Seconds meant everything when this water pipe burst in the middle of the road. Next, we're headed to central Vietnam. This is footage of severe flash flooding, which had been caused by heavy rainfall. The raging flood and landslides destroyed about 60,000 homes and many roads. More proof that our life-giving water can soon turn into a destructive force. Now on to Taiwan, the Ximen Reservoir to be precise. This man-made lake was created for irrigation purposes and flood control in the Taipei Basin, hydropower, along as a water supply for more than 3 million people. The powerful structure allows water to be discharged at a maximum capacity of 400,000 cubic feet per second. But just look when Typhoon Solder had came to town. By the way, its speeds were clocking in at 177 miles per hour. There were no barriers for water that had escaped our control. It will effortlessly launch into the air and end up sending a heavy hatch along with it. These drains couldn't handle the heavy downpour, and an incredible fountain appeared in the road. Have you ever heard a wave referred to as a silver dragon? Well, that's what the tidal bores like this one are called in China, probably because of their power. And there's no tidal bore bigger or more well known than that of the Quintang River. In fact, it has become one of Hangzhou City's major attractions. Many tourists visit on August 18th every year so as to admire the power of the magnificent element. Legend even states that it's a raging dragon. Next up, another devastating tsunami in Japan. Everything the torrent passes by is taken up with it. Cars, houses, trees, and even power lines. And these aren't shot from some apocalypse movie. This is real life. Onward to Nebraska, where here 3 friends from Omaha almost drowned when floodwaters began pouring into the elevator. After an adventure like this, maybe claustrophobia can be learned. We'll continue our wet journey across the US, but next in Michigan. After record floodings, the Edenville Dam embankment was unable to withstand the force of the water and collapsed, causing Lake Wixon to be drained completely. Let's instead admire the picturesque San Sebastian Paso Nuevo Seawalk, which is located in Spain. Here, huge waves break on the embankment and shoot into the air at incredible heights. From here, you can observe the mighty power of the elements without ever risking your life. Have you ever played water polo on a football field? Oh, you thought I was kidding? Well, a fall storm had caused the drainage system in western Michigan to fail and ended up providing Waldo Stadium with that opportunity. More than 1 million gallons of water were pumped out of the stadium overnight, and the Broncos and Akron football teams were still able to play a game the very next day. Now on to Ukraine, where in the capital, a pipe had burst and sent water out into the streets, a spectacular moment featuring a fountain almost 22 yards tall. Did anyone else order fresh lobster? Well, check out this service in Hong Kong restaurant. Now that's what I call fresh sushi. Back in the US, in Tennessee, heavy rains had triggered flash floods, and in a couple of hours, literally enough rain had fallen that houses were turned into boats. A powerful stream of water stops for nothing. And in Russia, things can get hairy if you don't check how deep the puddles are first after a very heavy downpour. Have you ever seen anything like this? Let us know what similar situations that you have found yourself in the comments. Switching over to Ukraine, in the country's west end, the elements had raged on, and such a flood hadn't been seen for over 20 years. Over 300 villages were flooded and 60 bridges destroyed. When nature gets angry, true disaster can strike. And over in the capital of Kiev, high winds and rain had struck. In just 30 minutes, the city received a week's worth of precipitation, and as a result, several metro stations were flooded, and the storm drains are ultimately to blame as they're not really designed to handle that much water. Our next story doesn't actually feature water, but rather red wine from the Bodegas Vivinos winery in Villamelia, Spain. 50,000 liters of the fragrant drink had flooded the winery and service parking lot nearby. I'm sure that the winery workers were identifiable by the smell of the wine tsunami after this shift. And in the Turkish city of Ardavan, it wasn't rivers of wine, but rather rivers of mud that had swept away everything in their path. It's frightening to even imagine being in a similar situation. A quiet night, empty hallways, and a sudden deluge of water from nowhere. What happened? A flood, maybe? No. It turns out that even a normal mainline pipe can burst and cause this much upheaval. It is simply incredible to see how much force that a seemingly controlled element has whenever it breaks free. Here's another spontaneous and striking fountain. This time, municipal services were unable to foresee the problems. Next up, in another instance of rain brought about not by the elements, but by simple human negligence, we can see here on May 1st in Uzbekistan on Labor Day, their reservoir had broke. This is what mistakes in the design, construction, and operation of a dam can lead to. We continue our journey to the exotic lands of India, specifically the Kerala village, where a paradise is ready for you and for relaxation. But even this peaceful place can turn into a real hurricane. Just look at how easily the huge waves demolish the residential buildings. Let's go back to Spain. As it turns out, even a place as serene as the Canary Islands can end up becoming quite restless. This footage is from Santa Cruz de Tenerife. Surprisingly, the elements had only spoiled the sleep of 39 restgoers, improving their seaside view from the balcony. One more dramatic moment from India, though, where vacationers in Mangalore Beach and Karnataka had ended up getting a rough surprise whenever their beach house was swept away by the ocean. Oh, and by the way, this region is one of the wettest in the entire country, and its climate is dictated by monsoons. Tourists here are looked at with surprise, despite the magnificent beaches and good hotels. However, it is a pilgrimage center for Hindus as a location of one of the most famous Shiva lingmas. Let's head from South Asia to Europe, where Cyclone Bernard had came to the town of Wuppertal, Germany. This was the view looking down from the stairs of the city's high-rise buildings. Belarus itself also suffers from heavy rains. The city of Grodno had received 20 days of precipitation in just 20 minutes. There is a small town in Russia called Verkhnya Salda where it rained there for 2 days straight, and here's what happened. Over these 2 days, the town received as much rain as it normally would in 2 months. The 33-foot wide Salda River grew up to 328 feet. Of course, the belt didn't fit anymore, and the river decided to throw it off. And finally, according to tradition, we'll end our compilation on a positive note. Just look at the mastery of this firefighter as he subdues the hose. We've got parkour, a workout, and some rope climbing skills all on display. So that's it for us, guys. Did you like this video? Drop a like and hit that bell so that way you don't miss the next one.